What's up guys, my name is Ace, and lately in Warzone, I've been finding that I've been switching things up a little bit, mainly just because I'm bored. But one of the things I've been playing around with a little bit is I started taking a Ghost loadout as my first loadout drop instead of Overkill. Now since the launch of Warzone, I've pretty much always gone for my Overkill loadout first, so I get two fully decked out guns like an assault rifle and a sniper rifle, or an assault rifle and a shotgun, or whatever it might be. But I really see a lot of value in having two primary weapons right from the beginning. However, lately I've been trying out going straight for the Ghost class setup first, and then with my second loadout I can just pick up another Ghost class setup that has the other gun that I want on it, like a sniper rifle for instance. By doing this, I feel like it's been helping quite a bit because it seems like a lot of the people that are playing these days, at least in the lobbies that I tend to play in, they're typically going out, they're hunting for kills, they're getting UAVs as early as possible, and they are just chasing you down. And this is why lately I've been seeing more and more value in getting that Ghost class setup as soon as possible. And since I've been going for this Ghost class setup first, this means I don't have Overkill, and this made me take another look at what I was using as a secondary weapon without the Overkill perk. And this brings us to today's video. What I'm going to be doing today is sharing what I consider to be the top 3 non-Overkill secondary weapons to use in Warzone. Now just a couple things to mention first. Just like with any of these top 3 or top 5 or top 10 sort of videos, a lot of it is going to be subjective, although I tend to base my decisions largely on the stats, and therefore typically with my choices they do have the stats behind them to back that up. Additionally, with these secondary weapons, I'm in no way claiming that they're always going to be a better choice than a primary that you might find on the ground as just ground loot, or if you kill an enemy player that has a loadout and he has a fully decked out MP5 or a fully decked out sniper rifle for instance, of course I'm going to drop these secondary weapons in exchange for that. It's more so just being prepared and optimizing your class in case you don't run into one of those situations where you find a primary weapon that you want to replace your secondary with. But without further ado, let's hop into the first secondary weapon that I've actually been enjoying quite a bit lately. It surprised me that this was so good, and this is the Akimbo Ranettis. Now you're probably thinking, didn't that get nerfed really hard quite a while ago when people were using the Akimbo 3-round burst Ranettis? And yes, they did nerf it pretty hard, but they really only nerfed it while using that 3-round burst. And I hadn't really considered just dropping the 3-round burst and trying it without that, and optimizing the loadout in different ways, like with the longer barrel for instance. And it turns out, statistically speaking, with the right setup here, you've got a very solid close quarters secondary weapon. Like, this is actually going to be dominating SMGs up close, assuming you can hit those shots. So the big thing with the Ranetti is you're dealing 42 damage to the upper torso, which is a good amount of damage per shot. And also you have the potential to be dealing 72 damage to the head as long as you're not using the 3-round burst, which no longer gets a headshot multiplier. And what this means is as long as you're keeping yourself up close, which is what this is designed to be used for, you're going to be able to kill in about 4 to 6 bullets, depending on how many end up hitting the head. And that might seem like a lot, but when you also factor in the fact that you're using it akimbo, you have the potential to fire 2 rounds at once. So effectively speaking, if we're looking at just like time to kill wise, we're killing in the same amount of time it would typically take you to fire 2 to 3 shots. Again, that depends on whether or not you're landing some headshots mixed in there. But even if it is just body shots, it takes you 6 shots to kill, or 3 taps of the triggers if you're tapping them both at the same time. And if you're using the lightweight trigger, which I recommend, you can actually put down an enemy with full health and full armor plates in 266 milliseconds, and that's assuming the body shots. And that is an amazing time to kill against a fully armored enemy. That's actually comparable to the Origin 12 up close with its 2-shot kill potential. So as a secondary weapon, there's a lot of power there. However, at the same time, you also have to acknowledge the limitations. When it is akimbo, that means you can't use it at anything beyond quite close range. Also, you don't have full control over your shots. There is a little bit of that hip-fire spread, although you should reduce that with the 5 milliwatt laser. And this means you might be missing a few shots here or there, and you won't necessarily always get that 266 millisecond time to kill, but it's a pretty forgiving gun as well, especially while using it akimbo. If you do miss a shot or two, it's not the end of the world when it comes to your time to kill. You will still get a very competitive time to kill value. So I'm absolutely loving those Ranettis as a secondary weapon. Let's move on to the second one that I'm going to share for you guys today. And this one's a little bit basic, but I don't see a lot of people using it as a secondary in Warzone. And this is quite simply the 50GS, or the Desert Eagle. And with this one, I'm not running it akimbo. Now, the reason I don't run this one akimbo compared to the Ranettis is it just doesn't have a very forgiving fire rate to it. So if you are missing those shots, which you will be while hip firing, then it's a super punishing setup to run because it's basically like you're just flipping a coin. If you hit, you're going to have a great time to kill potential, but you could just as easily be missing and have a horrible time to kill potential. So with the 50 GS, instead of running it akimbo like that, I actually run it sort of as a little precision finishing weapon. And with this, whenever I can avoid it, I try to not challenge a fully armored enemy. I find this is instead great for those situations where you pump a few shots into somebody, maybe you break their armor, and then you just fast swap over to the Desert Eagle and you can one-tap them to the head, or it might take you a couple shots to the body, like the upper torso, for instance. But the key with this is it just deals a massive amount of damage per shot. It's 77 to the upper torso, which is quite a lot for a single shot. And with a headshot, it's 113 damage to the head, which, like I said, if you've broken their armor, literally all it takes is one single headshot with this, and they're done. On top of this, the range values are pretty solid for a pistol, so this doesn't necessarily have to be used in super close quarter situations. You can stretch it out a little bit and take your time to line up that headshot if you've got the time. And yeah, just because of that, I feel like the 50 GS is an excellent finisher that is quite underrated, and like I said, I just never see anybody using it as their secondary in this game. But finally, this brings us into the last secondary weapon on my list here, and this actually isn't a gun, this is the Kali sticks. And I don't think this will surprise too many people. They're quite popular. I do see them used fairly often in Warzone. Some people actually use them as a primary, basically, like they use it with a riot shield, and then they just go around meleeing only. And out of all of the melee weapons in Warzone, the Kali sticks are just clearly above the rest. Not only do they have an insane movement speed of 103.5%, that's awesome, they also have a crazy lunge range, so you don't even have to get like right up close to the point where you're touching the enemy before you initiate an attack. You can actually lunge toward them with your attack. And then after that, your follow-up hits are insanely fast. You can kill somebody in just 400 milliseconds with that. And as you're doing that, you're also throwing them off target because when you hit them with it, it kind of gives them a little bit of a stun effect. Just in general, the Kali sticks are an excellent secondary weapon that I'm sure many of you guys are already very aware of. Of course, the big limitation though is they don't shoot bullets, and therefore they are literally useless if you can't close that distance. But with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Those are the top 3 non-overkill secondary weapons that I'm currently using in Warzone. But of course, that's just my list. I'd like to hear from you guys in the comment section down below. If you are ever using a non-overkill loadout, what is your go-to secondary weapon in Warzone? If you guys haven't tried the ones that I listed here, make sure you give them a go. I think you'll be pretty pleasantly surprised, considering they are a secondary weapon. I feel like I have to restate that a little bit. I'm not saying these are better than all the primaries or anything, but as a secondary weapon where you don't need to use overkill, I think these are awesome. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.